Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching YouTube and you want to join the conversation, you can see a link down below and you can join in Zoom. If you are here as an attendee and this is the first time, let me give you a little quick walk around here. You're going to see a bunch of people here as panelists and as attendees, and you're probably wondering, how do I become a panelist? I mean, these guys don't know what they're talking about. I know more. You might know more. And if you do think you know more and you think you can contribute to this, we'd love to have you. Join. You need to be here by 6:40. We open the doors at 6 o'clock in the morning. I can't promise anything between 6 and 6:40. It's kind of a roaming conversation where we talk about all kinds of things, technical and non-technical. But you're more than welcome to join us at 6 if you'd like. Between 6:30 and 6:40, we will distribute the Discord link. The Discord link is where almost 800 of us keep talking about this between shows. And then at 6:40, between 6:40 and 6:45, we start doing the mic checks. The mic checks are making sure that you as an attendee get a good show. And so if you're not here by then, you'll be an attendee and not a panelist. It is an opportunity during that mic check for you to ask more questions. You are the producers of the show. So if you're an attendee before the show, during the show, you are the producers. So what you need to do is ask questions and vote those questions up and down to kind of guide our conversation. Our job is to discuss those questions and do the best we can to maybe answer a couple of them. And but your job is to really kind of drive that conversation. So the first hour is general. Anything you want to talk about around media production is fair game. The second hour is usually a more vertical discussion about something specific. Mondays, it's kind of an all-purpose. We do all kinds of things on Monday. Tuesday is audio. Wednesday is cameras and video. Thursdays is usually a special artist that comes in to talk. Fridays and Saturdays are both dedicated to education right now because so many teachers are trying to figure out, of all levels, are trying to figure out what to do next. Today, we're going to be talking, we got Chris Summers here. He's here, and we're going to be talking about camera apps or apps that we use on set as we're shooting, which should be really interesting. And then tomorrow we have Peter Himmelman, who is a Grammy-nominated artist, and I'm someone I've known for 30 years. I see him about every 10. So Peter Himmelman's going to be joining us and talking about the creative process and maybe playing a little music for us. So it should be a lot of fun tomorrow. So that's what we've got coming up. If you want to share this, if you think that this is something that you enjoy and other people might enjoy, don't share your own link. Share the one that I'm putting into the chat. So that is the one. I'll put it in both chats here. But you want to use the link that I send out, that I hand you. You also get it in the email because that link is going to let them register as themselves. Otherwise, they'll all come in as you. Anyway, all right. Chris, are you ready?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I had a busy day yesterday. The reason I wasn't here is I did a little show with Peter Wiggins on fcp.co talking about the new Final Cut update.
I'm so excited. We're gonna have to talk about that for a second.
It's a big deal, but it's not sexy. It's great features that are like most people don't care about. Is my take on it.
What are the big features? I'm more interested in motion, I have to admit, because I'm really into motion.
3D objects.
So yeah, 3D objects. One thing I was curious about that I haven't tested, I haven't had time because it wasn't ready for download until later in the day, and so I didn't get to.
It was right at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock at night or in the morning?
In the morning. I'll give you a hint about the updates on the App Store. If you just go to the App Store and click your little update tab, you may see nothing. Go search for the app that you suspect there is an update for, and it'll
I just kept on looking at the update. I just kept on going update. Where is it?
No, actually search out the app, and it'll say, yeah, we got it. We just don't want to tell everybody at once so the servers don't choke.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
I think that's their reasoning.
So can you give us a really, really fast, what are the new things in Final Cut?
The three main things are improved functionality and stabilization for 360 video, which I could care less about. Social media tools for doing vertical and square video based off of your 16:9. Essentially what you do, that's all I'll say. I'll try to be brief. And the third thing, which I think is the most important but the least sexy, is what was it? It's hold on, it's coming. Proxy workflow. Tons of little nerdy tweaky things in the proxy workflow.
Yep.
Massive deal, but most people don't have to worry about it.
I think we're gonna have to drag some folks on. We're gonna have to do a second hour somewhere here about it,
Maybe
so
we
we can
can
kind of
get
walk through it. Get Steve Bays.
That
s-
auto
What were you gonna
framing
say?
thing, the vertical audio framing, don't downplay that. That's pretty big.
No, it's well, I'm gonna test it because I'm gonna take the movie that I made
So
with
it-
my kids. So I shot it and I did it by hand. I reframed it by hand the way I wanted
Yeah.
it for TikTok. And I'm going to, if you go to McDubby's, the McDubby's on YouTube, you'll see the 16:9. If you go to the McDubby's on TikTok, you'll see the 9:16. But I cut the whole thing in 16:9, and then I reframed it into a 9:16. And I'm going to be curious as to the difference between my choices and Final Cut's choices in that video.
So essentially what it does is allegedly it uses a little AI to pick the part. It doesn't track.
Right.
Once it picks it, there's a new view in the viewer where you can say, I know I'm vertical, but show me the rest of this stuff so I can,
Right.
it grays it out, kind of like After Effects does, I think.
Yeah.
So you can like,
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Go ahead, Bill.
If you use if you're on any of the public betas or the betas for iOS 14 and use the photos, the favorites thing in your widgets, it's using the same AI to sort of pick where to frame every picture. And it does a really good job at finding a nice little slice that you never intended to keep people's faces in.
Right. Go ahead, Bill.
I think the features are great. I don't really care about the features because 10 is doing almost everything I need to do already right now. The thing that is most exciting to me is obviously they've been ripping out the guts continually and recoding it for Apple Silicon coming and for all of what is going to happen. So a tremendously stable app that is already fast, I can see getting nothing but more stable and faster going forward. And that is the bread and butter of working. And I love them for this.
Go ahead, Courtney.
What is with the square aspect ratio? I saw the new Charlie Kaufman movie. I'm thinking of Ending This, I think it's called.
Well,
And it's square aspect ratio. I thought something was wrong with my stream.
It's Instagram.
This is a major motion picture.
That's a piece of it. I think the other part of it is that phones, you can, people are using them vertically and horizontally. So square is the only aspect ratio that is the same whichever way you turn.
Right. Yeah. So the reason Instagram square is so that you can look at it no matter how you're looking at it, it's the same. I will admit, if you watch too much stuff in vertical, like if I'm on TikTok and someone puts up a 16:9 on TikTok, I just immediately score Y. Like I'm not interested in watching it because it's too small. And the thing is that you don't think it's a big deal, but when the mechanism is this way on the camera vertically, and you turn it, and now you only turn it for the movies that are like that, and then you have to turn it back, and then you have to do this thing. You just don't do it. And I thought that it was crazy, and I thought it was just kids. But now that I use it, I had to do a ton of consulting last year on TikTok, and so I had to spend a lot of time on it to make sure that I understood what was actually happening. Because when you open up TikTok, you're like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I can't watch it anymore. It makes my head hurt. These people are nuts. And then after 3 or 4 hours, you stop thinking that. And then then you start wondering, and then you go back to YouTube and you're like, why are people talking so slow? Hosmuk?
Yeah, we create a lot of learning content, and almost all of it is vertical videos,
Right.
because bulk of the target market
It's a user. It's a
only
user
device
behavior.
they have is they only have a mobile phone, so that's where
And
they
when they
watch
started-
and learn.
When our clients came to us with wanting to do 9:16, I'd be like, are you sure you want to do that? Because that's a horrible idea. But I've now gotten into trying to figure out how to make it work, because it is the future there. I mean, for some things, not for everything. I still like 9. I still like 16:9 myself, but I still shoot stuff. The reason I do stuff with my kids on TikTok was specifically, or I was before I got so busy, before COVID. I did it mostly as a research project of what do you have to change in your process. Go ahead, Chris.
I can't remember who said it, if it was you or somebody here, but I think one of the most interesting comments about vertical video, and yes, we're all old enough that we should never do it, but here we are, is that when you're framing a human, whether it's a close-up or standing, you're not having to worry about like the
Yeah.
background as much. Was that you who said that?
That was me. I talk about that a lot. Is
I
that
think
when
it's a great observation.
the vertical frame lets you focus on the person and not what's behind them. And from a production perspective, it takes pressure off of them. And it also keeps you really focused on them in a way that you don't have in 16:9. Go ahead,
And
Stuart.
not their silly props in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. Go ahead, Stuart.
The framing and the square aspect ratio isn't actually for Instagram and what have you. You'll see it on the Snyder cut of Justice League, which is coming, and it's for iMacs. The other thing, Chris Fenwick, the 360.
I don't think
video,
IMAX
you
is
probably
perfectly
want to take
square.
a little bit more. It is larger.
like-
It's a closer to square framing.
Yeah, it's not, but it's
if
not
I can-
square.
Yeah, it's a lot larger, and it can actually be cropped to 235 as well. Chris, the 360 video, you might want to take more interest in that simply for its use in special effects. It's really easy to film background plates with a 360 camera, and
I'm
then
I'm not
use those
interested.
for the
I'm not
green
interested
screen.
even remotely. Like not even remotely. I think
Really?
the preponderance of 360 video is this experience thing. Like, look, get to look wherever you want, and that is the
No.
absolute antithesis of filmmaking.
No, don't use it for that. Don't use
Right.
it for that. Use it for your backgrounds behind your effects shots.
For
For
Battlestar
even for
Galactica,
your lighting of effects shots.
yeah, Battlestar Galactica did a lot of broke a lot of ground with that, where they were shooting. They had all these, I believe they were red cameras, that were basically building this big array, and they would stitch these incredibly high resolution backgrounds of people walking around and everything else. Then they would shoot the actors on green screen and comp them in, and they used it all the time. I remember looking at the rig, and when you got up to the rig, you were like, this is nuts. Like this is an enormous amount of work, but it takes a lot out. They were able to do a lot more production that way, more effectively. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, when Dolby installed most of the 2,000 theaters a month in China with 120 frame a second option, I mean, that was the standard of an entire 1.2 billion people, and that is now their normal. So if you want to believe that 24 frames a second,
I don't know where is that audio coming from. I don't know if it's you or us, but it's really horrible.
Sorry, stepping away.
Yep. Jeffrey, and then Bill, then we'll probably move on.
First of all, Chris, the 360 thing, the best part about it is it's like having a drone inside without having the drone. You can still do the HD video. However, getting back to the subject about the resizing, this is also something that Premiere Pro does. Premiere Pro has been doing it for a couple of years, and the best part about that is it does the object tracking. So if we did this HD, if I turned it into a 9:16 and I moved over here, it would actually
what tracking is. Yes.
track.
And
Well, I know, but I know you do, but other people. I'm talking to other people.
I will say that I would love to. I'm going to take a 16:9 and put it into Premiere and put it into Final Cut and see which one comes out better. I'm just curious. I don't know the answer. I have
a
a
good
guess.
idea. Yeah.
I have a guess. Bill.
And I'm all tremendously respectful for all the people who want to do these niche workflows, because I think that's very important, particularly for research and development, because if we don't get 3D for those kind of people, we're not going to get them for titling and things like that can actually help now that our screens are getting more and more complex and you need more and more layers of things. But I still say that the most important thing for me is that the work I used to take a week to get done, I can now get done in 2.5 days or 3 days. And that makes money.
And the one thing that we will talk about a little bit more, not today, I'll just make it a really quick note, is that the USDZ into motion is the thing that I'm the most excited about. It is the beginning of something, I believe, that is you're going to see that go across not just Apple apps, but other apps. If you are a 3D artist, this is an incredible market. This is an entirely new demand by a much larger market than has ever existed for 3D objects. And all of those 3D objects basically have to be created again. So the OBJs and all the other stuff that's there is crap. It's not going to render correctly. It's not going to have the proper surfaces. It's not going to have any of the other things that it needs to have. You can't just download stuff from TurboSquid and expect it to show up at the level that is possible inside of it. You'll see a lot of middle of the road 3D stuff that people are I'm just going to export my OBJs out, or I'm going to get it off of TurboSquid and I'm going to throw it in. But there's so much control inside of the USD file format that you can have all this lighting and all kinds of reactive surfaces and deal with having things moving around and so on and so forth. That there's going to be this massive market. Motion is the beginning of that. The one that I'm most excited about somewhere in the future is Keynote. So when Keynote hits, so the thing is you want to pay attention to this, you want to play with it, because when Keynote hits, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of people looking for 3D art for their, and so for those of you who are thinking about that and trying to figure out what you're going to do with your 3D skills, it is an amazing opportunity. Amazing. You know, to be able to build, you know, and it can be as simple as I just went to clip art, and I've been wanting this for 20 years. And so I've been talking to 3D companies for 20 years about, hey, you should build something so people can just drop the image in and move it around and have it render at print res, you know, would be really cool. And we're there, you know, and not only that, you're going to be able to, when you think about USDZ as it relates to AR, you know, you're going to be able, you're going to be able to, all this 360 and AR and everything else, you can be able to click on stuff and have it pop up in front of you from your Pages document or from your Keynote document. And so as an authoring tool, this is a place to start playing with it. And it is now, it was already the best video app for $50 ever. And now it is a stunning deal, you know, for, you know, and it's unfortunate that we can't get a 90-day version of it so people can play with it, but I use it every day, you know, and it's a stunning opportunity for people to play with. So anyway, Courtney and then Chris, and then we're gonna move on. We've talked about this too much.
Are we going to be plagued now with every keynote presentation having a meaningless 3D rotating object, just like all the multi-fonts that were appeared in every desktop publishing
It might be
application in the 80s?
But the thing is, there will be. I mean, there'll be a lot of people using it for the while. For a little while, it'll probably be the lens flare of presentations. But I think that there's a bigger opportunity past that, which is that as someone who works a lot in Keynote, the issue of being able to drop the objects in and have all the objects look like they belong to each other. This photo was not shot from this angle, and this photo was not shot from this angle. You know, I can have all the objects. I can just put them all in, and then be able to have them look the way they want, and even be able to click on them and rotate them. So if I'm talking about something with a client, you know, if I want to talk about what this is, and remember, there is almost a straight line from taking photos of an object with your LiDAR equipped iPad to a USDZ model in motion. So you have something that you want to, and you know, so you can literally, you know, take a couple photos, turn it into a 3D object, export it out as USDZ, and drop it into your project. That should not be under, it doesn't mean you have to even build things. You can scan them. They're not going to be as good as the ones that you built, but you could definitely scan that. And I'll show some examples. I haven't had time. I won't have time till this weekend to play with it, but I'll pop up some examples when I get into motion and figure out how it works. And, but the opportunity is pretty amazing. Chris, real quick, and then we'll move on.
Absolutely. The last thing I want to say is that according to Philip Hodgetts, who was on the show yesterday, he says that the download that you get right now is fully Apple Silicon compatible. It's actually two sets of code or two installers in one, whatever. So they've been running it on Apple Silicon since they got their test machine. So all right, should we talk about what Larry Jacobson wants to talk about?
Let's talk about questions now.
All right. So I got to hit the little answering the question button. Larry Jacobson from Cheyenne, Wyoming says, my wife and I use our iMac to do family Zoom meetings and have been using external speakers from the iMac headphone out. Joyce, I'm assuming that's his wife, has a hearing issue. Is there a simple way to get two sets of Bluetooth earbuds and headphones out of the iMac simultaneously? This is a monthly meeting. I think.
Go ahead, Mike.
You can get an external Bluetooth transmitter that'll plug into the 1/8-inch audio jack, so you could have two Bluetooth things going simultaneously and probably set separate volume on them.
Of course, if you're willing to do one, if you're willing to do one ear, you could share one.
But and you also, I mean, get an 1/8-inch splitter and have two sources out of that output and do, you know, with what you will with either one of them, you know.
Yep, absolutely. Jeffrey?
So.
AirPods does AirPod sharing, and they do it on iOS and they do it on Mac, where you can plug in more than one set of Bluetooth headphones, and they'll send the signal to both.
Absolutely, Mickey.
Yeah, on a Mac, if you go into audio MIDI setup and you click the plus icon there, you can set up what Apple calls a multi-output device. So if you have two sets of Bluetooth headphones paired to your Mac, you could create that multi-output device and send the audio to both sets of Bluetooth headphones.
Next question.
Wow. Very cool. Our own Paul Wallace says, what is the best setup? Best, he says, for an iPhone and an Android phone for getting good audio and good video into a Zoom session, completely mobile, nothing plugged into the air conditioner. I'm
Good.
sorry, AC power.
Mickey?
Yeah, you can with an adapter, you can plug in a Scorpio if you want to.
I was gonna say the same thing. I was like in this group, it's really dangerous to say best. Like best is, yeah, there you go. They're 833. That'll go right into it. Like if sorry. The thing is that when you say
why
best,
did I
you're
say
really,
best? Why
yes.
did I say best?
You need to clamp it down. We have a big imagination. Think of that Han Solo thing where I can imagine a lot. I think that Ceramonic makes some really good ones as well. So they're much less expensive. They're like $100. They'll do XLR. They'll do XLR, and they obviously the preamps have no forgiveness when you go over it. Mixed pre's, 1/8" jack in. Mixed pre's have the 1/4 inch. You can like mount them and everything else. And so the mixed pre's are a good solution. So from this, I would say at the bottom you have iRig and Ceramonic, and at the top you have Scorpio, and there's lots of various pieces in between. It's just a matter of getting into that 1/8" jack. Go ahead.
Can I qualify this more, Alex? Can I qualify?
Sure, Paul.
We're talking run and gun. No heavy mixers or anything, just a very portable, lightweight setup.
Now I just need to ask, how much does a Scorpio weigh?
Yeah, it would be a lot to be run and gun, but a mixed pre 3 would be pretty small. Go ahead, Jeffrey, and then Mickey.
I'm actually doing this right now. I'm working on my Mevo Start. I've had this for a few months. I'm using that as the camera that also does audio as well, and then you can bring that into your phone. I'm not sure how that would connect to Zoom from there, but maybe give that a look over.
Go ahead, Mickey, and then Colin.
Yeah, like on the low end, like really portable, lightweight. Yeah, the iRig stuff will work. Focusrite also has a few interfaces that are designed specifically for mobile devices. Yeah, take a look at those. Like, if you want something that's portable, Mix Pre3 isn't that big either.
Colin?
There's Mickey's low end, and then there's my low end. Find a TRS splitter so you can break out in and out. This would be on Android or something with an 1/8" jack, and then run your cheap audio kit in and out, earphone and mic into that, and get yourself a halfway decent gimbal, handheld gimbal, and you'll be fine.
This is a lightweight test that we did probably 3 years ago. Let me do a screen share here real quick.
For the guy who hates screen share.
I know, I don't have another way to do it right now. My switcher is sitting there. I haven't had time to put it back in. So,
Okay.
So anyway, this is the camera mount. This is the Aladdin little, really oddly expensive light. These are two of the Sennheiser ENG 100s. It was relatively inexpensive. And then this is a Ceramonic. Let's see if I have. Let's see here. That's the other side of it, kind of the more. So you have the Ceramonic input here that goes into the headphone jack. So yeah, so that's kind of a light run and gun that we built for mobile. We were building those because you got prioritized for viral sharing if you did mobile on Facebook for a while. Anyway, next question.
Victor says, Alex and all, what do you think about the FCPX mesh mount?
We went right down. The Victor, that was a perfect question. Anyway, so we should have, in the future, we have to get that. We have to move that one to the top if we're going to talk about it. Sorry about that, but
I could have read ahead. I'm trying to do some work over here.
Chris?
Sorry. A. Mitchell says, to expand a little on the reason for the question about convention crewing, this question might actually be a good open discussion on selecting crews and maintaining certain quality standards, union versus non-union hiring, benefits and drawbacks of both choices.
So we'll stay out of the convention thing. But I think that the crewing thing is probably a reasonable, good question to talk to. I think that it's really tricky. It's a super tricky thing, and usually it's tricky to talk about in public, but we're going to try it anyway. There's two sides of it, obviously, and I've spent most of my life on one side or the other. And you have producers who are hiring crews, and then and there's a lot of decisions in that process. There are the thing to remember. I think I was trying to. I saw this question coming up, and I was trying to really think about how to talk to it. But everything is about relationships in crewing. It is not your demo reel. It is not your resume. It is not your degree. None of that stuff matters in crewing, in my opinion. Like, it almost never matters. The only time I have to do a reel is if I'm already saying this is the right person. And then a client who doesn't know them says, well, can I see a demo reel? And then you show them a demo reel. But, everything is about who you know, and so, and the way you get into that is generally in this is that you start working with other people. You're on little gigs, you're on things like this, you start meeting other people. Just meeting them is not the same as working with them. So they won't make any decisions about you until you're actually on a crew with them. And the things that they're going to measure are things like, are you dependable? Are you on time? Are you appropriate? Are you, mission focused? Are you, they'll be thinking about those things either consciously or unconsciously, as you work. The crazy thing about what we do in production is that most of us aren't employees, so if you're an employee, there's a lot of room for error. When you're a freelancer showing up for a job, whether it's union or non-union, those producers don't have to have you back. So the mistake that people make is that when producers don't respond to them on set, when they don't get upset or whatever, they're not going to respond to you. You know why? Because they still need you to work today. So if they tell you all the things you're doing wrong and all the things that drive them crazy, then they're afraid that it's going to become a drama during their show. How they handle it is that they just don't hire you the next time. Like, they don't call you again. And so what you get, part of what you get paid for someone like me is that I worked with thousands of people. And I will now only work with hundreds of them, and my ability, I have that Rolodex that a producer has of I can pull in good people is the thing that oftentimes makes a producer or makes a crewer, worth their weight in gold or not, is their ability to have that. And so, and so much of it is, I'm looking for this kind of producer. And what happens is everybody has this network of other people that they talk to. I need a person that can do this, and this. And they say, okay, these are the 5 that will fit that bill, and they'll do just what you need inside of the budget that you have. And then you get a job, and then once you get, the big thing is when you're on a crew, once you get that job, you want to make the most of it. Like, there's you want to, again, the people that show up on time, but not too early. People that something that drives producers crazy is crew members that show up an hour early. I show up, if I'm on it, I will show up between at most 15 minutes early to the producer. So like if I have a job, for instance, at Staples Center, which I, for some reason, have a lot of them in that area, there's a Starbucks there. I'm at that Starbucks an hour and a half before the event, before my call time. And then I sit there and have coffee and I surf the web and everything else. And then 15 minutes before, I walk over and get my badge, and if I have to get a badge the first time and there's security and everything else in the theater, then I get there half an hour early to make sure that I can, I know that there's going to be a line that I'm going to have to deal with. But the thing is that you're thinking proactively about that process. When you show up too early, you're actually a problem for the producer. You're now something that they have to manage when they weren't ready for that yet. Showing up late stresses them out a lot. Showing up less than 5 minutes before stresses them out too. So you want to think about like all of these things as you're going into it. And then when you're, and so when you're working, and a lot of people don't think about this. When you talk about politics on the team, you're probably never going to come back, unless you are amazing. It doesn't matter whether it's liberal or conservative or whatever. Say anything about politics on a set, and most producers will be like, unless they're like super one way or the other, and you are the same direction, the chances of them wanting you back because they know that you're going to stir things up in their set. Complaining a lot, good way to not telling everybody the way it should have been done and everything else. Again, you're not working for the people around you. You're working for a producer who hears everything, whether they tell you or not. And so the thing is that you just have to, when I think that I just watch, again, I've done over 2,000 events, and many of them have been on site. And you just watch crews, you watch individuals do things, and you just think, wow, that's, like if, and I'm not, I'm as crazy as they come, but I'm really good at containing that when I'm doing what I need to do. And so you want to get to a point where you get your personality out of the way, as someone who's whether you're a producer or whether you're a freelancer or whatever, getting your personality out of the way, out of your own way, is how the men and women who stay busy day in, day out all the time are really good at being, they're good at having a personality when it's asked for, but not having an opinion and personality when it's not asked for. And they understand how to fit into that process, and they're never bored, in that area. And then if you add skill, you can get really busy most of the time. Go ahead, Bill, and then Chris.
So I spent most of my career in Arizona, and one of the things about Arizona is it's a right to work state, which simply means that you cannot require union membership as a condition of employment. They do a thing called Taft-Hart laying you in if you're on a union set and you're not a member of the union. So what I've observed over the course of years is that the smaller and more local the power exerted by any group, whether it's management or a union or any other organization, the better it seems to be. And my observation has been the bigger things scale up, the worse the abuses get. I got to the point, my wife used to work in a newsroom and literally got yelled at because she was on deadline, had 10 minutes to get her story filed. Her copy came off the printer machine. She grabbed the scissors hanging on the chain to cut her coffee out and got a union flag for that because she wasn't authorized to cut the piece of paper off the teletype machine.
Yeah, and I want to stay away from the limitations like that. We just got to be careful of
But
that.
then on the other side of that, you've seen all these examples of huge employers doing horrible things to employees, keeping work sites terribly unsafe because there was no collective bargaining. So in the middle of that is, I think, where everybody intelligent wants to be. And that's why I'm saying the smaller and the more local, that's been my observation, where people can actually talk and fix things. And the fewer levels of management or union management in between seems to work best in my observation.
Go ahead, Chris.
I can't remember what I was going to say.
Okay. And there's a comment here. It really helps when the producer makes it clear what they expect. Absolutely. And we can talk all about producers as well, of letting people know what to expect, letting people know what to do, but there are basic things as a crew member that you want to do, that you want to be considered. There's a term in production called client facing. You want to be client facing. Like if you want to keep working, you want to figure out how you become client facing, and that is because people say, well, they're not client facing. That means they're weird. Like, just so you know, like that means that person's weird. They may be really good at doing whatever they do, but they're not someone I'm going to put in front of the client, and it's not about how they look or what anything else. It's will they instill confidence in my production if I give them to the client? And if I give them to the client and I feel like they're going to be too candid, if I feel like they're going to go out drinking with the client, if I feel like they're going to go do a bunch of other things, they will be considered non-client facing. And as a producer, I will keep you away from them. And if you see yourself being pushed away from them, that means the producer has decided that you are non-client facing. And so the key is that you can have the producer definitely needs to give you a lot of understanding what the expectations are of the show. But as a crew member, there are basics that if you do these things, these are like almost laws of physics, whether the producer even knew that they needed them or not. These are the laws of production: is being reliable, being appropriate, being part of the team, not going down that path, not shooting your mouth off all the time, and generally not talking when you don't have to. Those are the things that get you hired over and over again, and just getting your job done in there. Because the problem with producers is they're dealing with so many variables on set. If you become one of those variables, they're not going to bring you back. If you take away those variables, you'll come back every time. With the teams that I have, the teams that I hire are rock stars. The folks and the folks that and I know that I can hand something to them and they're just going to, that's going to get handled. I'm not going to come back. I mean, they may come back with an appropriate question about something, but if I know that I can hand that off to them and that's going to be handled now, as a producer, that's gold, to have that. I think that personally, we've done tons and tons we were a union signatory for a long time, and I've done tons and tons of union work with mostly Local 16, but also Local 1 and a bunch of other Local 600, made me a much better producer. just I absolutely was not a grown-up producer until I did union jobs. And so it is, union jobs have a lot of crazy stipulations that when you first go, it drives you absolutely crazy, but it takes care of the team. And I generally try, I don't always succeed, but even if I'm doing a non-union job, I try to run them. I try to run them as close to union jobs as I can, on a set. I mean, when you're doing like event after event after event, it's another thing, but a lot of times I'll tell people it's going to be rough, and pay them accordingly. But for union jobs, you have when they can come in, when they can come out, how early, when are the breaks, what are the rules, and what happens is when you get good at doing that, you get good at taking care of your crew, so that, you don't run them into the ground. And it's not out of malice that producers run people into the ground. It's out of they're overwhelmed and they just don't see it. And there's just too many things that they're understaffed and, under-resourced and not able to see that people are now haven't slept for whatever. I mean, some of them just do it. I don't know. They're not concerned about it. But a lot of times you're just trying to put out a fire, and so I think that, and for clients, it's just a matter of understanding what the restrictions are, that there are going to be, a union job will always be more expensive, always, it'll have more restrictions. It'll, all of those things will happen. But I don't have again, I just go, is it a union job or not? And then we just figure out what that, what the requirements are. But again, I feel like I grew up, I hadn't done any union work. I mean, I was in Local 16 at one point, but it's one of the few people they actually let go. I was like the only non-union CG artist at Local 16 because I was so much trouble. And so I didn't like people negotiating for me. And so I felt like I could do better myself, and I did. And so but I think that when I started actually doing union jobs, while I bristled at it for the first couple of years, by 2012 or 2013, I was pretty good at it. And we, like, for a big union job where we have 75 people in Local 16 that are working with us in 4 or 5 different teams, we had a person for 3 weeks before the event and during the event that just pays attention to the union rules and the union breaks and the process. And you just learn how to pay attention to it because and that person pays for themselves every show, because they just make sure that because you have to think about it. It's this crazy calculus of how to make all of that work. Doug and then Zach real quick, and we're going to move on.
How do you break into the crew to begin with? I mean, I'm a producer, but I mean, you guys on this panel are doing huge shows, and I'm a little guy. But for me to be a better producer, I feel like I need to work on some bigger shows. But how do you even break that ice to get on a crew?
Go ahead, Chris.
It's a classic example of, you work the ladder. You might be in a non-union world, you may have a very advanced title, but if you want to break into that, you might have to go down to, and that's for union, but even in non-union, I mean, I think that almost all of it, I mean, every job I've ever gotten, or almost every job I've ever gotten, is because I was doing something I wasn't getting paid for with either friends or somebody. I volunteered something, or I did something else, or I figured out how to do something, but almost all of it came from something I wasn't getting paid for. I mean, and I'm talking like 99% of the work that I've gotten has been started by something that I'm not getting paid for this. It is doing something with other folks. I mean, I worked with someone where we did a bunch of free stuff because I was trying to figure something out. They just happened to, I'm trying to figure it out. They're doing it. They saved me the content, so I was able to figure it out. And now we're doing tons of work with them, and so paid work, but it started with me trying to figure something out. And that's probably how an enormous number of people get in. Okay, we're gonna move on. We talked through that one. And of course I challenged everybody to ask tons of questions, and they have, and now we're taking too long on each question. So anyway, next question. Seth Graham says, I'm working to fix my aspect ratio on my 6K. I think he means the BlackMagic with the ATEM Mini. I've eliminated the black bars by setting the resolution to 6K, but the choice is limited by the ATEM's frame rate setting, 50 frames per second and under. What is the best frame rate for a Zoom meeting? Can we just make a video to explain this so we can point people to it? It seems like it keeps coming up.
Yeah, I fixed it really quickly on my 6K, and I don't know what I did.
You're a
Like, I don't
pretty
know.
advanced Blackmagic user.
No, but I don't remember what I did. I felt like I just hit a couple buttons and then it worked. And I don't know what I did differently. Go ahead, Bill.
Try powering down your camera, completely removing it from power, plug it back in, and then leave it. If it's in the 6K top left bar on camera settings, just leave it there and plug it in and see if that works.
Okay. You do have its record has to be in a 16:9 ratio though. Like it
Yeah,
has
but
to
I think
be.
it defaults to that. I think the
Okay.
6K, I think defaults to what will work with ATEM mini switchers. That's what I found.
And anything in live or real time, anything over 30 frames a second is, unless you're playing games, is not useful. Next question.
Yeah, moving forward. Our own Phil says, using NDI HX camera on an iPhone to send video to my Mac, NewTek NDI video monitor, how can I get better frame rates? I'm getting about 2 frames per second.
Phil, you want to explain?
Yeah, so I'm showing it right here. This is from my camera, and it just terrible frame rates here. I got a little sweep going here where you can actually see, but I just don't know if that's what you get with, NDI over Wi-Fi, or is anyone getting better?
Jeffrey?
What are you sending? You said you're sending it to OBS?
No, straight into the Mac.
Straight into the Mac. You should be getting at least 30 frames, if not higher, depending on which app you have. So I would check to see if there's anything else.
App that I'm showing it on.
Yeah.
And is it and the camera set to 1080? The camera, or is it set to 4K?
iPhone. It's just well.
Right. Oh, so the camera's going to ask for it.
I don't see any settings in the NDI app. Maybe it's just taking the camera settings. Is that what
Go ahead,
there are 2 apps for NDI. There's one that's the actual camera app, and there's one that's actually taking a screen scrape of the phone to the app. Which one are you using?
NDI. It just says NDI HX camera.
That's the NewTek one. That's the right one.
Okay.
Phil, if when you tap the cogwheel for the settings, there is a small symbol on the second from the right on the second on the right, which looks like a speedometer. Is that set to the extreme right or to the left or to the center? You can tap it to change
left. That's left.
So thing is, extreme left is 640, middle is 1080, and extreme right is 4K. So you might have it set at 4K.
It's definitely well, but look at it, just stops. There's the center.
Centers, it should be full HD, so you might need to go down a bit. It might be because of the Wi-Fi as well. If you can wire it, you can just plug it directly via Lightning to USB and bring it in.
I would do Lightning to USB to test it to see that'll help you at least reduce a variable.
Lightning to USB, then but I got to get
into your Mac.
out.
Into your Mac.
No, Phil. You can just connect it directly to your Mac. Just switch the Wi-Fi off, so it should show up as a network device. Network device, and creates a local LAN basically between your Mac and iPhone.
I'll give that a shot. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. We expect a report tomorrow.
I will say it can work. It can work well. This is the same. Whoa. This is the same thing, and it works. It works.
You got it hardwired, Chris.
No, sir. It is using the NDI wireless camera, but I'm going into Mimo Live. I don't know if that makes a difference.
All right, next question.
Next question. Gary Liu of Parkland says, what would be the easiest way to add individual lower thirds to all participants of a Zoom meeting? Now, about 30 people.
Easiest way?
Let Zoom do it.
Well, Zoom does the little black one. I guess you could put a design around it so it looks like it belongs. That'd be kind of cool. Like a little design. One of the ways that people do it is to, you can't do it in the Zoom meeting unless they all have something locally that will let them do it. So that they'd have to have something like Memo or something like OBS or something on every one of the computers. So that's the one way to do it, where everybody's going to have it in Zoom. Another way to do it is to have your, it's either pinned, you can pin someone, and then you can put lower thirds over them to stream it out somewhere else. People in Zoom aren't going to see it, but the folks, if you were streaming it, you could now have a clean version of what people are looking at, and then you can. And then what we do is we just do one-to-ones. It depends on how many people. I guess that wouldn't work for this group, for instance. So obviously, there's a Chad who's not. He's here. Hi, Chad. Built actually a tool for Hangouts, the Hangout toolkit, and he actually set that up so that you could have lower thirds. Everybody could have lower thirds on their piece inside of Hangouts, which is pretty cool. So, but there's no APIs inside of this platform, so Zoom would have to add the functionality for people to add it. It does seem like something that Zoom should add. Maybe now that the feature lock is over, we might see that, but I don't have any inside information. Go ahead, Zach, real quick.
Yeah, everyone could have a tent card in front of them on their
Yeah,
table.
okay.
You'd have to have a wider
Right.
ship.
The chances of
Analog.
it working well would be very low. Next question.
Moving on, our own Zach right here. Look how that worked together. How do you expose for a dolly shot in from outside in the sun through a door to an interior?
Chris Summers.
This may be better for Chris's second hour, but
No,
you're good. Iris pull. So we'll literally on the Preston hand units, like the wireless units that I was showing earlier, you'll have like the focus knob on one side, and then on your thumb you'll have a separate slider, which is simply for the aperture, and then we'll have to time it and then manually do it in the take. That's the manual way. The other way, if after take one you don't get it right and the cinematographer gets a bit annoyed, is you'll choose something in the middle. You'll choose a split that's exposing half or in, half or out, and then you can adjust it in post. Because to get that timing every time is pretty tricky. And if you're dealing with actors coming in or dialogue, you might need more control later.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Bill, and then Zach.
If you're going to do an iris pull or something like that, going from dark to light, try to do it authoritatively and evenly, because in post, those of us who are trying to match the shots, there's nothing worse than one move, then another move, then back a little, and we're in there trying to cut the scene into the transition into 3 or 4 parts to recreate some balance. It's a mess.
Certainty is a big deal there. Go ahead, Zach, real quick.
yeah, well, this would be a prosumer type of camcorder. So I was thinking, right, split the difference or expose for inside and see what happens. And, push inside, expose for that. And the other thing is, I would light it perhaps inside. Do the best with lighting.
I was going to say
right,
that.
to try and match.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
you
these
balance
are
the
my
lighting. Yeah.
But we're talking about like an XA11 Canon camcorder.
Yeah,
How many options do I have for what you're suggesting?
Ride that. It's gonna be hard with a manual with a smaller camera to do it. Okay, we're gonna speed up. Stuart, go ahead really quickly, and then Chuck, but really fast, because I made the mistake of giving long answers and then asking for lots of questions on the same day, and so we're gonna have to move really fast. Go ahead.
I'd ask Zach what the program is, because if it's something going to YouTube, just let the iris do it automatically. But Chris, would you be better off using a variable neutral density rather than iris, so that your depth of field doesn't change as you're doing the iris pull?
I have seen extreme color shifting on the variable NDs, especially if you're trying to do it within one take. So it'll be one color at ND3, a different color at 6, and a different color at 9. They start to shift more magenta green in some of them.
That would also be manual. That would be manual, Stuart.
Yep.
That would also be manual, right? Yeah.
Chuck, real quick, and then we're gonna move on.
I was just going to say, with a lot of practice and a lot of rehearsal, I have done it before on a small manual camera with the ring on the lens. But you have to practice and walk with the dolly and have a separate dolly operator so you can focus on that.
Yeah. All right, next question.
Roger Harmon says,
and by the way, as we do this, it is super important. I don't know if we're going to get to all the questions in the next 11 minutes. Super important for you to vote. So if you're watching this and you want to, get in there, vote the questions up that you want to see. Look through the questions that we have left, because I think we're going to run out of runway. Go ahead, Chris.
While hosting a Zoom meeting and playing a Vimeo or YouTube video, when I mute my mic, the video audio mutes. Bug or workaround? Yeah.
Mickey?
Yeah, my question is like, how is he playing out the video? Is he screen scraping it or is he screen sharing? If it's a screen scrape and he's running it through as if it were his microphone, then muting will mute the video audio. But if he's screen sharing, it shouldn't mute.
if you're screen sharing and you select, so you have to go into screen sharing and say share computer sound in the lower right. If you're not doing share computer sound in the lower right, you are getting it from the mic. What they're hearing is coming in from the mic. So when you mute your mic, you're going to mute everything. So I think that's what you have to do on that play out. Next question.
Lower left.
Lower left. I'm just, okay, go ahead.
Looks like Microsoft is finally starting to roll out NDI integration for Teams. Ooh, has anyone used it yet? And as a live stream producer, what type of Teams account do I need to utilize this with various clients? Like most things, Microsoft, that information isn't easily discernible on their website.
I don't think any of us have used it yet. So
it's kind of exciting though.
Ask it again in a couple months, and we'll see if someone's actually put it into practice. Go ahead, Leland, real quick.
Just as a one-off, I'm just going into the NDI input selection on vMix, and I do have Microsoft Teams as an option. So I'll take a look at it this week and see how it worked.
Great. And when we see Leland back, if you see Leland in the panel, ask next week, and he better be ready.
I'll be back tomorrow.
All right. Okay, great. All right, next question.
Greg Gibson from Washington, D.C. says, I've seen a few posts recently from established producers lamenting that market newcomers are driving down cost. I've seen this post for the last 35 years, which is the bigger threat to market rates, newcomers to the market or company DIY on platforms like Zoom? It's an old story.
It's such an old story. You got to get, I was working at Prime Sports Network for $3.75 an hour and persuaded them to double my rate to $7 an hour and fire their ad agency, who was making a lot of money by being a crazy little whippersnapper. So I can't say that I'm, yeah. So the thing is this is always going to be the case. This is why you have to keep on leveling up. You have to keep on getting better at what you do. You have to build the relationships we talked about before. You have to have something that's value add all the time, because you're always going to have people with less experience and less gear and less other things that are going to compete with you. And you got to find that market of where you belong in that. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but in our industry, there is no relax. Like there is no, I can just do this over and over again for the rest of my life. That doesn't exist. And you need to be constantly leveling up all the time, both with your clients. And that's why things like this is part of the reason I built something like this. So we all get to know each other. We all learn faster. We all, cross-pollinate between each other so that we can be leveling up while folks that aren't in this group aren't. Anyway, Bill, real quick, and then Chuck, and then we'll move on.
As technology moves forward, this is going to be a constant problem because more people have more access to more equipment and can compete at the lower levels. So it's not going to stop. And you just have to do what Alex is saying, be good.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I grow my business by serving my clients, but if I don't serve and level up, then I'm going to get left behind.
Yep. You need to do both. And again, constantly trying to find, get better at it, really understand your craft. There's always work out there. I have clients that I show them how to do. I show them how to replace me because I know that as soon as they get to a certain level of skill, they're going to come hire me again because, you can't do certain levels of work on your own, and they're not going to want to. They're going to give up on that. Okay, next question. We got to keep moving. Sorry, guys.
Jeff from Upland, California says, iPhone 11 Pro as a camera to ATEM Mini Pro via HDMI or AirPlay. Is there an app or a solution that crops the output to 16:9? Instead of the crazy letterboxed 19.5 to 9.
Let's ask that question. Screen. Let's ask that question next week. I can't let's just push that off until next week. All right, next question.
Oh, I love those little hints. That's a okay.
I would say almost. All right, anyway, next question.
Martin Reutman from Buenos Aires, Argentina says, I have a MacBook. God, I hate that stuff. I have a MacBook Pro mid 2015 with 2 USB 3 and 2 Thunderbolt connections. Is there any Thunderbolt dongle? He says dongo. I love that. Adapter to convert that out to USB 3 and USB-C. Nothing on the Apple or Amazon site. All of you are the dongle masters.
Mike, real quick.
Yeah, well, I guess I missed the part. That Thunderbolt 3 is USB 3 compatible. And you can get a hub that will take the USB-C Thunderbolt output and give you USB three outputs and
I don't-
in the USB 2 connector, and you can convert that to USB-C if you have to, if you need more USB-C outputs. You're right that there are no USB-C to USB-C adapters, because I would look at myself, but you won't have any problem with that.
There's USB. I have one around here somewhere. USB-C to Thunderbolt. It's just a USB-C with Thunderbolt female, and then you can plug that in, and you can plug it into your USB-C there.
Does he mean
go ahead.
DisplayPort type Thunderbolt? Is that what
No,
he's asking about?
No, the connector is the same. It's a USB-C connector.
Right.
No, it's
Well,
not.
that's why I thought it was a weird
It's
question.
2015. It's a 2015. It's got
2015.
two Thunderbolts,
Yeah.
two Thunderbolts and two USBs, and there is a Thunderbolt. It's a USB. It goes into a USB-C male, goes into a USB-C, and then it goes out Thunderbolt female, and then you can run a cable to it, and that would get you to where you're trying to get to, I think. But anyway, let's keep moving. Next question.
Moving forward, Katie Lake says from New Forest, UK, I am slowly building my media workstation and will eventually add an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, cool, to it to test out my iOS rig with Teredek Live Air. Is it worth investigating in a budget HDMI to USB converter for the interim, and which one? I'm actually doing exactly this.
Well, have you found anything?
Yeah, Leland, as a matter of fact. Leland, do you have that thing close by that you can hold up? It's the arm's reach test.
I do. It's
I just ordered
very...
6 of them.
Did you? The link, Chris, if you have the link, I'd have to go dig it up. But this is a $20 HDMI to USB converter available on Walmart.com. Chris has the latest link. I had it. I bought this about a month or two ago and did the loopback test with it and everything. I haven't actually... don't have a HDMI device to connect it to the computer as far as the camera goes, but as far as the loopback system, it's pretty straightforward. You put the device in, you connect it to the computer, and you have another feed out to go ahead and have that routed to a separate monitor. So it works.
You know, I'm realizing just now, right after I literally just hit purchase. You're a PC guy, and I probably should have checked on the Mac.
All right. Okay. All right. Next question. Next question.
All right. I'm moving on. Paul Wallace says, I have 17 microphones now. Why are there not more producers and directors and upper level media management people on office hours? And can we have some of these folks as guests on the Spotlight Hour? George Lucas, Richard Linklater, Quentin Tarantino. Yeah.
So number one is that there are producers. They're just not necessarily visible to you. So they're not in the panel necessarily, but they are in the group because I chit chat with them about things that come up in this area. So there's a lot of people floating around in the viewership. And a lot of them are watching now in the Makana thing where they're just watching the video, so their names don't show up and everything else. But there's a lot of folks watching that are related to that. The second thing is that if we share this and we grow it and we get to 1,000 or 2,000 people every morning, we can get anybody. It's literally a function of size, of how big we are as far as who we can order. We can't asking them to come and visit 250 or 300 people. Some people will, and a lot of them are people that I know and they're willing to experiment and so on and so forth. But if we want to keep on expanding that to something where we can get if I say I've got 3,000 people that are going to show up, or 2,000 or 1,000 or whatever, it's a different point of leverage as far as having people, join people that I don't know, that won't come just because. And everyone who comes loves it, but it's a matter of getting them, trying to tell them something crazy. It's like round for kids. Anyway, next question.
Charles Hendrickson from Annapolis says, has anyone been able to shade a BlackMagic Pocket Cinema camera through a Seetec ATEM 156 live streaming broadcast monitor? The 4 HDMI in-out ports don't seem to allow for two-way communications.
I think that would be completely predictable. I would be blown away if that worked. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, like any device that accepts HDMI signals has to do a handshake. So any loop out is not really a direct loop out of HDMI, but a reclock signal coming out of that monitor. So any non-standard signals get stripped away.
Next question. We're gonna do.
A Mitchell says, "Oh, I'm sorry. This is for camera."
Okay.
All right. Sky says, for overall leveling audio, Chris Fenwick suggested Crumplepop. Leland Best, is there a Windows version for this trick software for leveling audio on a file or a?
That's a
We
good
don't know.
question.
We're
I'm not
stumped.
familiar with it. I'll have to take a look and see what we've got here first.
All right. So I want to apologize to everyone that we asked for lots of questions. You guys did your job. I didn't do my job of keeping our conversations thin enough to get to all the questions. So I want to take personal responsibility for not managing that conversation better. And so we're going to switch zones. Zachary, you're going to say something?
Thank you. Yeah, before we do, can I just check Victor's sync, please? And
we are kind of interested in Victor's sync. Go ahead,
yes,
Victor.
and my own, if I
This
may.
is Victor's sync through HDMI.
No, it's off.
It's off.
Way
Oh,
off.
it's off. Where do I stand? Am I somewhere also off? Check
Pop
1, 2.
not going to go to the pop.
No, so
I mean, it's
so
going
Zach,
directly into the camera.
Zach
Peter
is on
Piper.
and Victor's off.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
So
I'm
now,
on.
so that's
2 hours and I'm on.
yeah.
But
So
Victor's off.
So now we need to know what the delta is between the two of you. For those of you who are watching, there's a raging discussion before the show about sync in the ATEM Mini and the fact that people with ATEM Minis are seeing sync sliding. And we thought we had figured it out. I thought that I had figured it out, and I was dead wrong. So we're still trying to figure this out. But Victor is sliding and Zach is not, and they're both using video into a camera. Now, Zach, what camera are you using?
Canon XA11.
Okay, and then Victor's using BlackMagic.
Yep. Mix pre out, analog
see.
out.
There's
Blackmagic
still another
in,
hour.
into the 8.
Okay, we'll talk about this for just 45 seconds more. Mickey, and then Chuck, and then we're gonna move on to
Yeah,
Chris.
Victor, quick question. Are you any chance like rolling on this on the ATEM as well, just to double check if the sync is also slipping in the internal recording?
I am not recording anything.
Yeah, it might be
just how I do it every.
good test to see if it slips on the internal recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Chuck, and then Jeff, real quick.
Well, I'm also on the ATEM Mini, but I did switch so that my Pile microphone is going directly into the ATEM, so I'm not bringing my audio in USB anymore. And I'm wondering if I know you've tried both, but
figure it
I'm
out.
not sure.
You mean
Jeff, real quick.
HDMI? You mean
Jeff, real
audio
quick.
HDMI?
Yeah, I'm right now HDMI, ATEM Mini Pro audio into the camera, into HDMI input number 1, and it's a Canon XA10.
He's doing exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay, we'll keep on working on it. All right. The mystery lives on. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're talking about we are now moving on to our camera session. We have Chris Summers here once again from Budapest. How is Budapest these days?
It's good. It's getting a bit more mild. The leaves are starting to turn a little bit brown, which is a little bit concerning because summer's just like passed by completely, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And we've been stuck inside the whole time. But it's good.
So what do we have today, Chris?
All right. So today I just wanted to talk about iPhone apps that I use quite often at work. I've nailed it down to 4, but we're certainly not going to limit it to that. We'll see if my friend makes it in time or not, but if it doesn't, then that'll be cool. Yep. I'm focusing on 4 apps. I'll see if my screen sharing is going to work here. And I've gone for the legacy thing. Oh, this is going to be great. All right. So I wanted to start off with a director's viewfinder app called Cadridge. These are from some developers out of Austria. I know that there are some competing products. I really like this interface. It's really, really simple. You have choice of all the modern camera manufacturers over here, lenses. You can then choose your particular lens set that you want. And something that's different as opposed to some of their competitors, you can choose a lens adapter. So you can say, I want to put on a 1.5 extender or a 2 times extender so you can rack into your frame without having to recalculate something else. They've got all the popular manufacturers. Stuart Fairweather, are you having a look over there? There's your camera right at the top, the Scion. These get updated quite often. So as soon as new cameras get released, I'm pretty sure the BlackMagic 12K will be on here in no time. Once you choose your camera, you choose your aspect ratio because you're going to be having a particular aspect ratio of frame lines that you're going to be wanting to construct your shots. And then you've got all your major lens manufacturers. Again, every time a new lens comes out, they're going to be updating it and adding it into this. Obviously, once you choose your lens manufacturer, you're going to have to choose your sizes. You might not want every single size from the 21mm up to the 150 or 180. So you just want to choose the particular ones you have. And then you can go and do some scouting. Once you choose it, you can click on your particular 35mm and it will zoom into that particular frame. And you can then do screen grabs on the bottom left over there and keep them in a library. So you can go out to a location, do some scouting, do some snaps, and then have it as a reference before you go to shoot, and build up a storyboard beforehand if you wanted to. So this is a really, really handy tool. What it replaces is a optical viewfinder, a pentafinder, or a director's finder that people would be going out to the set and saying, okay, I need the camera here, etc. So this is a really, really cool app. There are some competing apps, like Artemis is very popular. I know that a lot of people have been using Artemis.
How would you compare this to Artemis? Because that's the one that I've used in the past for the most.
I was an Artemis customer for a long time, and it was great. They've updated it and upped the price, which was one thing. That's fine. I don't mind to pay developers for their work. But in their new app, you cannot disable the microphone for some reason and use the app. Meaning, if I just want to go out and take snaps, all I want to see is images. I'm not able to do that in Artemis. And I don't understand why. If you turn off the privacy setting in iOS and you launch the app again, it just takes you back to the welcome screen and says, please enable all your permissions, including the microphone. So I just thought, no.
I'm curious about why they would.
It's weird, isn't it?
Odd.
Is it possible it's just lazy programming?
No, he's a pretty active developer, I have to say. If you turn the permissions off, it just takes you back to the welcome screen and it won't let you go further until you go back to settings and enable the microphone. I don't have that problem in Cadridge, which is great.
Do you find you gave anything up by going from Artemis to Cadridge?
So Artemis has a hardware device that you can stick an iPad into, which has a full 35mm PL mount on the front that you can stick a lens on and then program. So you'd stick on, say, an Angeno zoom, like a 15-40, and then set it and dial in your frame lines so that you could actually sit there with a physical lens and use Artemis on an iPad with the lens. That's the only thing for me that you were really giving up. But personally, that was a bit clunky.
Right.
To be fair.
And how much is Cadridge? I have it. I can't remember how much I paid for it.
Cadridge is about half the price of Artemis, I think. I would have to check the dollar amount, but in Hungarian forints, I think.
And how do you spell that for everybody?
Cadridge is C-A-D. Excuse me. Let me please paste all the links in the chat right now of the apps I'm going to speak of. It's C-A-D-R-A-G-E. Cadrage. Cadrage.app. They're based out of Austria. There's nothing wrong with Artemis. We've used Artemis a lot on huge major feature films. I know many cinematographers who swear by it. I know who the developer is, and I know he's very active with his development cycles and with his updates. He's also very receptive to people contacting him and saying, hey, you know what? We've got this 35mm over here, but actually the lines don't quite match up. You need to bring them in or out a bit. So, I mean, his development cycle is good. Definitely. It was just that one little privacy thing, which sort of was a little flag.
It's a very odd. Like I'm now very curious about that. Anyway, Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, I just downloaded Artemis. It brought me to here, and there's a little thing at the bottom that says cook. So what are the initial steps in getting it up and going?
Is that the right Artemis? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and there could be a couple. Artemis is a very popular word. So let's go to the next. Does anyone else have any other questions about it? If you have questions there, I'm gonna. just keep on and make sure to put camera : if you're asking new questions that are related to these. Anyway, go ahead. What's next?
All right. The next app I wanted to talk about is PCam. This is, for me, if you had to just get one app for your phone as a camera assistant or as a camera person, PCam would be the one. This is an application which I have been running for, I don't know, 15 years. Originally, it used to work on the Palm Pilot. And this developer then ported it to the iPhone once it came out. It really is the Swiss Army knife of camera apps. You've got depth of field. This is your main list. You'll have everything from depth of field, working out aperture splits, field of view, relative size, triangulation, running time to length, working out color corrections. So if you want to work out color temperature, what filters you'll need to do, corrections, diopters, macros. This is an example of your depth of field calculator. Again, it has all the major camera manufacturers and formats. One of the really cool things that this app has is a preview function where you can dial in, you say, okay, I'm on an Alexa Mini, we're shooting at 4K, it's 3.2, we're on a 52mm at 6.8 feet away. What does that look like? And it can tell you exactly what that field of view is going to look like. You can dial it in. You can move your person, all over the frame if you need to. You can change the distance. You can change the focal length as well. You have choices. You can say, I want, one person. I need a 2-shot. I need people sitting at a table, a group of people, a vehicle, or maybe you need to start doing pack shots. You need to maybe do some pre-visualization to set up your shot. This app allows you to do it. So you could say, okay, I need a group of people, 7 people in a frame on a 52mm. Okay, I need to be 30 feet away if I wanted to hold them all in that frame, for example. Same for a car, how big is my studio? Is my car actually going to fit in there? Or if I have this lens on, am I going to bump the wall? Will we have to remove the door if I want to get this shot in? You can check all of this beforehand, which is really, really useful. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share for a moment, open up to any questions while I see if my mates are on.
I just want to say that's a pretty magical piece of software. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is when you're pre-visualizing your shot, the more you can do before you get there, the better, and so a lot of times, we take a kind of a heavy-handed approach where if someone tells me I'm going to be shooting at a location, if I'm allowed to get there, I'll scan it, so I'll get a LiDAR, and I have friends with LiDAR, and I think that you can, I'll try to scan it. There's 2 reasons for that. One is that it really makes it easier for me to lay out. 2 is the best time to ask to scan someone's location is when you're doing an event there and you're already paying them for the location. You go, hey, can I scan this? And they're like, sure. You can't go randomly into a location and do that. So if you're there, you might as well, pull up some lasers and figure out what's going on. Go ahead, Sky.
I'm just curious with Google Maps now and that experience of the previs, that how much do you now use Google to scout your locations?
I wouldn't say it's so much Google. Sorry, Alex. I wasn't sure it's so much Google, but certainly you'd use waypoints and map them out on Google Maps when we're approaching a location. So we'll often say we're going to shoot in a park, a massive public park. We have our unit base over here. We have trucks. We know that we're going to go from these entrance points and wrap out from those points. And we will use Google Maps not only to plot the points, but just to make a nice printout because it looks pretty cool.
And Google Earth is really useful too. So the Earth, downloading that app is actually it's a pretty useful app to get. You'll get a lot more tools to figure out line of sight and a lot of other. I use Google Earth a lot for point-to-point transmission because you have to figure out if I'm going to put a receiver here and a transmitter here, is there anything between me and there? And you can actually go on the map and draw the line between them and then go down to the one that's over here and look at it, and say, like, is there a tree in the way? When I'm trying to do it. Go ahead, Paul.
All these, I'm getting used to hearing myself in my headset because Chris Fenwick told me I needed to do this. So I'm, keep going. I'm kind of shocked. But anyway, are all these apps, which we've spent $80 on so far, do they run on the iPad as well? And do you prefer the iPad? And is the iPad extra cost?
I'm not sure about all the apps. I know Artemis does and a few others, but yeah, it does vary from
A lot
app
of
to
times
app.
you end up using them on the phone because that's just what when you're on set, you're pulling that out and you're using it. I used it a ton. I know when we were doing shoots in Cambodia, actually in Angkor Wat, when I was trying to find framing for a bunch of shots that we were doing, I was using Artemis at the time, all the time, to figure out, what shot is going to, what part of that temple is going to make sense with the camera lenses that I have. I would have actually gotten a lot of attention from security if I pulled out an iPad, to be honest. Like a phone you can get away with. Pull anything else out and it becomes a thing. People start walking over and asking what you're doing.
I have
Go ahead.
I have seen quite a few people switch to iPads completely, like for an entire job, and using a suite of apps besides the ones we're talking about today, but they'll also use Evernote, which is very popular for literally like sketching out a scene or a setup that they want to do, and also for sharing to other people. It really depends, what you want to do, but building a workflow for your work as well. If you want to do pre-visualization, you might use PCAM to get like a basic framing of what the lens might be, but then you'll also use CAD-Reg to actually go and pinpoint a GPS location and map out a height, like in physicality, because with CAD-Reg you can actually see through a camera, whereas PCAM you're just looking at a theoretical setup in pre-visualization, let's say. And then you'd use something like Sunseeker to go and sit down and go, okay, if I'm at this point right now, in 2 weeks, where's the sun going to be? So you'd certainly use.
Can you talk about
more than-
Sunseeker? That was actually going to be one of my questions. Sunseeker.
It's coming up. It's coming up. Let's go to it right now.
I want it now. I want it now.
It was good. It was good. Yeah, it was good. A good little transition there.
So I'll go past that one and come back to it last. There's a couple of Sunseeker apps. The original one is called SunPath, and SunPath has been a Windows and Mac OS app for as long as I can remember. The one that I'm using now at the moment is called Sunseeker. The link is in the chat, and it's a really simple app. It literally tracks the sun depending on the variables of where you are. So you could say, it doesn't need to be in your location. You could like point your phone up to the sky and go, if I was on the West Coast as opposed to the East Coast next week at 7 in the evening, where would it be? And it will show you exactly where that point lies. So for example, here, we can see that the sun is just behind those trees over there, popping through. That's pretty accurate. You can see the timeline here. So that's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And it will use ARKit to track the sun virtually throughout the day. And here you can see your date line. So 10th of June, 11th of June. 20th of June was going through the time. So it's like, a few days later, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. That's where the sun is, but you could also go, all right, I want to know where the sun's going to be in this position at 7 o'clock in the morning if I want to get it through there. And so you'll know straight away, all right, in this position on the 7th of June, on the 20th of June at 7 o'clock in the morning, that is exactly where the sun is going to be. And that's all it is. It's simply using the GPS and the accelerometers in your camera to take known information about the sun path and puts it out in an AR fashion.
Go ahead, Chris.
It's really useful.
Mr. Summers, is it possible this was used during the construction of Stonehenge?
Exactly. Well, and I think that it all of these things seem like simple things, but when we're doing this, there's so much work that we have to go into to figure this all out, and there's all this math, and being able to just walk in and just say, okay, what does this look like? And you can do the same thing, for instance, in SketchUp, where you can use, you can put something into a real world location. You can position your object in real world and then have it show the sun where the shadows are going to be at any given time. And we've used that a bit, to make sure that where, because that obviously, as Chris can underline, it's devastating if you don't get that right, because you're where all your gear goes, where your crew is logistically put. Everything is all right, where everything is happening for the day is dependent on where that sun position is, right, Chris?
Totally. I mean, I can imagine there must be nothing more disheartening than walking in and going, you know what, that whole unit base over there with like 15 trucks and a couple of trailers, we're going to have to move that like in an hour or something to get the shot. No, Yeah,
That's a-
time is money, and these things will save both.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was that was a critical plot point in Raiders, I think.
Or where the sun was. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Something about the temple and the staff and
yeah, exactly. You just got to make sure you have both sides. That's the key. Is both sides. Anyway, but the one of the things is it's not that we didn't do this before, but someone would have to go there and watch and plot it and draw it out. And I mean, there was right, Chris? I mean, there used to be a way to do it, but it was very manual.
It was very manual. It was literally
there were protractors.
Yeah, it literally was protractors and compasses. Where is my compass? I was packing it the other day, literally for that exact purpose, because that is the backup. So literally we'd get SunPath, you'd print it out on an A4 piece of paper for that particular day, and it would give you the azimuth and the angle. And then you'd go there and you'd need to have a compass and you'd need an inclinometer, because then you would have to track it and go, okay, I'm at 270 degrees north, and then I'm 40 degrees in a positive inclination. Then you would know.
Did you feel like you were a captain on a ship? Did you feel like you were a captain on the ship?
All the time. Many visits to sailing shops all the time. But people still do it. I mean, we still have to keep those things in our backpack because batteries go flat, software corrupts, phones go down.
Just happy you said A4 piece of paper. How analog and quaint.
It's still such a great way, I have to say. Like one of the things I'm not talking about with all this iOS stuff is data entry. I know that there's a lot of apps that do that for visual effects and some for camera, but from the camera side, we still revert to pen and paper. I don't know why. We're just so comfortable to it.
Yeah, when we see, I know that when we're on set and we see the camera assistant going down the paper, we just go, "Oh, this is gonna hurt." As the post person, like when they're not doing something digital or we're not getting the digital data, we're like, "Oh," and then you'll see, and we'll see it. You'll see someone, and that something went wrong. Like it's not like they meant to do it that way. Sometimes you just realize they don't like it, and but you just know that there's going to be a lot of analog correction because it's so hard to do by hand accurately, right?
For an American audience, an A4 piece of paper is a 8.5 by 11. 8.5 by 10. What's the American version of A4?
Yeah, it's different. It's
a little smaller than legal stuff.
Yeah.
A little smaller than legal, yeah. Okay, like your yellow legal pads, right? Same size.
All right, Nick. What do we got next? If you have questions for Chris around these, and if you're looking at those, definitely throw those questions up. Right now, there's a lot of room for people to ask questions if they choose to. All right, next question.
It's going to be a short session otherwise.
Well, we have a lot of people viewing, so they were hanging on to a lot of people. I think people are interested; they just don't know what to ask. So
that's
anyway,
cool.
Keep going.
We'll make it random if we have to.
Yeah.
Cool. And the last thing I wanted to show you was a really great app by a mate of mine. Unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to be able to join us. Called Lenser. It's a really simple app, but it's really powerful. It's literally a lens database. That's all it is. Sounds very simple.
Is it
difficult
Lenser?
to achieve?
Is it with an A?
Lenser. Lenser.
Okay.
Lenser. There's so many new lenses on the market. There's so many old lenses on the market. You have lenses that have been rehoused. They might have been rehoused through various manufacturers. So what this guy has done is he's taken existing databases online and obviously put them into stats, but has also gone and found rare lenses all over the place, measured them to all the specifications needed, and then put them into this database. Stuff that we'll need very, very often. Obviously, we've got common factors like the focal length, what the t-stop is, close focus, but also importantly, what's the front diameter of the lens? What does the lens weigh? What's the length of the lens? What is the image circle? That image circle reading is the most valuable thing for me nowadays. If you think about, we're putting different lenses meant for different formats on different sensors. We've got large format, we've got Super 35, we've got full frame, we've got 2/3 and all the rest. This is a database which is incredibly helpful for everyone. He's been very active with this. All of this data could be exported and emailed, and he updates it regularly. I was in a prep session 2 years ago, and we had 2 sets of pretty rare lenses. We had Canon K35s, which he didn't have in his database yet, and we had the Apogee lenses, which are rehoused by Richard Gale Optics in the UK. Very, very few people have those. And I got a call from him. He had heard through the grapevine that we were testing them, and he asked very nicely, "Oh, could I come in and do a measurement?" And he came in with his calipers and his measurements and everything and his scales and measured the whole lot. And a week later, it was in the database, which was really, really great. There is one or two other people that are making something like a competition. It's pretty good as well, but obviously I'm biased because he's a mate.
And so, yeah, and all of these things are, I mean, that was only $5, I think, right? Is that Lenser is a relatively inexpensive app.
Has he dropped the price?
Unless I got the wrong one.
I just posted the 4 links in the chat now.
$27. We're now
then
up
I
to
then I bought the wrong one.
$117 total. We're
Wait,
still putting things in the shopping cart.
Wait. So his is Lenser is more than how much is Lenser? Because I see Lenser Director's View.
27.
the one.
$27.
I don't know why it charged me 4 or 5.
That's a
I don't see
different
the
app.
other ones.
Different app.
It's a different app. Interesting. But it's
Yeah.
okay because Apple has a really good return policy of 14 days, no questions asked.
Yeah. It goes along with Director's Viewfinder.
Well, what's interesting is there's a Lenser that is much better visually when you look at it on the web page. Like when you look at it on the, so the funny thing is that this is a good lesson for app developers here, that there is a Lenser itself. This is probably good feedback for your developer friend, is that there is another Lenser that's there that has a great image that you can look at that you go, oh, that must be it. You know, it's $5. And so somebody's drafting off of him, and it's, you know, like, and it's got, because his is just a bunch of text. Like you look at it, you go, I don't know what that does. Like, so when you look at his image there, you're like, I don't know why would I get that? And so the other one makes total sense. You go, oh, if someone told me about it and I searched for it, I would absolutely buy the other one first, which I did. So now this whole thing has cost me $30-some because it, you know, because I bought the first one and then I just bought the second one because, you know, it's been this has been the most expensive show you've done, Chris. That's all I want to say. Go ahead, Bill.
I feel proud.
Some questions.
Since we're looking for questions and interesting discussions for the general audience, Chris, can you talk a little bit about blue hour and golden hour and durations and things like that? That's part of tracking the sun.
Totally.
And just to tie that question in, one of the questions from Tom Wineland is, does Sunseeker app have a setting for magic hour? And then inside of that, if you can answer Bill's of what does that mean?
It shows aeronautical, astronomical, nautical twilight.
Mm-hmm.
It might give golden hour. I'll have to check. So what golden hour or magic hour is those magical hours of light just at dawn or just at dusk, where the sun has pretty much gone down, so you don't have any direct sunlight hitting anything in your frame, but you have a very nice, soft ambient light. In a nutshell, that's what it is. Very popular for car commercials because you obviously don't have strong highlights kicking off of everything. It was very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s when we were shooting car commercials, that they'd set up something called a split day. So if we were shooting 10 hours, they would call us at 3 or 3:30 in the morning to get that early morning light. And then we'd go home somewhere for 6 hours and then come back and just shoot the afternoon light, because the middle of the day was, no good. Depending on your other commercials, you might do other work in the middle of the day. If it was a car commercial, you might switch to something like a process trailer where you can control the light and put something like a scrim over the top. If you wanted to shoot tighter shots with people inside or badges or details of the interior of the car. But for any big wide exteriors or things like that, you would do it in around the times of sunrise or sunset, and that's magic hour.
Yep. Go ahead, Sky.
Can you talk about why that's important with regards to shadow and regards to why shooting at noon is one look versus the evening, and why shadow is relevant to a two-dimensional media? I know this is Art 101, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective, sir.
God, I hope I give the right answer. I'm not sure I can, Sky. So just with the morning and the evening light, because because there's no direct light, you're not going to get a hard shadow. Number one, you're not going to get a hard face shadow. So shadows coming off your nose or ears or any other facial features. And number two, you're not going to get a shadow on the ground. And there's also that very strong contrast of hard light on the one side and soft light on the other. It becomes too contrasty. The nice thing about golden hour is it is that beautiful soft light. If people were in a studio, they would try to achieve that sort of lighting throughout the day. And you would do that because you'd be able to control it. What's not nice, and it's obviously a problem for continuity, because you'd be shooting the car in the morning, you'd have this nice soft light, and then you'd cut to the guy getting out the car with this hard shadow. It would look incorrect. That's not to say that it doesn't happen, because I have seen commercials that do that, So that is the main thing. Continuity, number one, and number two, for the aesthetic.
For some reason, I remember that I think that Three Kings, a huge portion of Three Kings was shot in the magic hour. Like, I think that they actually, just focused huge chunks. There was whole scenes that were shot that way where they had to shoot day after day after day, and they'd only have like this little bit of time to shoot. Go ahead, Stuart.
For those of us who aren't on Apple, I've been having a quick look in the Play Store and finding ones for Android that match what Chris has been suggested. And following on from what Alex just said about the way Lensa looks, it actually comes up in the Play Store as Sketch Lensa. So people might think it's actually a drawing app rather than a camera app. So that comes back to the marketing as well. But Chris, what have you got for recording, say, the angles that a camera has been placed at during a shot? Like, is there a like a virtual bubble level for the Apple? Because I know that there is one for Android and there is one for BlackBerry.
Yes. Yes, there is. It's the built-in measurement device. So it'll do inclination like that, and I can't do it with my camera now. But if you laid it flat, you can see it there almost. It becomes a digi bubble, and when it becomes level, not that I can do it now, the whole screen goes green. There is a built-in function. It's pretty handy, I will say. It was very common that we would carry physical inclinometers, the old school ones, to measure the camera inclination. And of course, the modern cameras like the Aries and the Reds and the DXLs, they all have internal accelerometers built in that will measure your tilt and your roll. Exactly like that. Yeah. Just one thing to be aware of, that these can be calibrated wrong sometimes. So it might be a good idea in a prep to put it next to an actual physical bubble and see if it's good.
Yep.
This one's actually called Bubble Level for anyone looking for it on the Android App Store. And it's actually a free app.
Kyle Hammond says, more on the producer-director side, but have you heard or have used Shot Lister or something similar?
Shot Lister? No, I haven't.
Has anyone used Shot Lister? Go ahead.
Well, that feels like the old thing that was on the Newton that, again, Philip Hodgett has updated with Shot Logger. It feels like that kind of an app. Do your DITs or continuity people use those apps?
Assistant directors, definitely, and that would make sense coming from Kyle. Producers and assistant directors, they would use Shot Lister. I'd say for what my experience has been Movie Magic yes. Scheduling. That seems to be the default app for most professional people nowadays. I don't know Shot Lister. Maybe it's the new kid on the block and it's going to take over. But most people are quite used to Movie Magic since many years. They have their templates.
Talk about Movie Magic, what it is.
Simplicity. It is a scheduling and budgeting software. That's what it is. It's scheduling and budgeting. We have a schedule. We have to break it down. We have to break it down budget-wise. We've got actors, costume props, cameras, locations, vehicles.
Has the interface gotten any better?
No.
It's so bad. It's such a useful app. It's such a useful app. And a lot of times you can get away with people keep on buying your app because it does the thing better than anybody else. You've got a small vertical market and they use it. It's a really powerful app and the interface is just hurts your eyes. It's so bad. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, I remember we used to do a lot of logging in what was the database? The Apple database that we would have to make our own. So
FileMaker?
FileMaker Pro. Thank you, Bill. I know. But then, so tracking of shots, logging of shots, you don't have to do that, but recommendations?
No, we do.
Circle takes, what are they?
All of it.
How?
Pen and paper in
It's still a
quadruplicate
circle.
carbon copy. It's still a circle.
Still a circle take.
It's still a pen like this.
The one place you can't use a Sharpie because you're trying to go through carbon paper. You still need your ballpoint for that.
People still love it. I mean, you could ask people in this group. I've been talking about a centralized sort of database for more than a decade of doing stuff. But I know for a fact only a small portion of people will end up using it at the end of the day.
And there's a bunch of resistance. A bunch of us started talking about really building a unified database that ties in all the departments and everything else and pulls them all together. And the interesting fear was the thing that came up that kind of killed it over and over again is that I'm going to have some producer in LA watching all of this in real time and calling people on set saying, why are you wasting money on this? And why, the loss of independence became a bigger deal than I thought. That part of the paper thing is that there's a certain amount of fog that everyone gets to work into that is required to actually get it done. Like it's just hard when you're not there and you only see the data. The map is not the territory and the data isn't reality. And so it's easy for someone to look at that and make a bunch of decisions that aren't actually accurate.
Well,
so it's
now in the land of
valid
COVID,
problem.
Now in the land of COVID, those rules might have changed. Maybe it's time.
But I always think when you have producers that get upset about, and I'm a producer sometimes and you look at it, but when you have producers that get upset about things not going the way that they expected or not having all the little details that they needed and everything else, I always think of the part of Armageddon where they're pulling out a little card that says this is how many feet they should have gotten, and this is how many feet there are, and you always want to say this is what happens when you drill, like this is what happens when you make a movie or a project. It's not going to look like that. It's going to be you're going to be behind and then you're going to be ahead and then it's just one of the things. Mickey, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on using pen and paper. Like back when I was doing camera work, I would have DPs or operators ask me, say, if we're shooting a product shot wherein effects or props has to rig something to the camera. Like the DP would sometimes ask me, can you draw that rig at the back of the report so that we know how it is set up? And things like that, where you can just doodle something if needed or handy.
And it's one of the things that you have to be careful of. Like I work on shows where they'll put tape over our cameras, and they, so that you can't take them. But the problem is that it really is a detriment to us because I'll build a rig or we'll build a rig. And then I really would like to take a picture of it so that if we have to do this again, we can do it again, even for that client again. And so it becomes this thing where there's this data hole that exists because you weren't able to take a picture. Go ahead, Courtney.
One thing I wanted to ask Chris, if there's most of the modern cameras, store a great deal of metadata into the actual camera file itself, and some of it will do lens data and, time code and shot length, everything except a qualitative analysis of what the shot is. Is there something are there utilities that will extract that metadata from the files and generate a camera report or a post-production report that indicates, scene, take number, location, time code, lens data, that kind of information?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Thanks, Courtney. Many do, as long as the lens technology, obviously the lens needs to support it technology-wise, and it does, and it records it straight to the time code and does it, in time with the take, and it will record your focus distance, where your focus is set, your aperture, and if it is a zoom, the zoom position. So if you're zooming throughout the shot, it will track it along with the time code. So we'll use that very often. And I've often had it where I've had a lens where the LDS, the lens data system contacts don't quite line up. I will stop and I will spend time. I'll get an alcohol swab and I'll clean it off and I'll make sure that information gets in there, because we realize now how valuable it is to time saving down the line when people go into post.
Absolutely. Sky and then Bill.
Have you shot any Netflix that have put in requirements of logging and shooting for? Is Netflix telling you how to do a shoot? Have you?
Netflix has very strict requirements on the cameras and the delivery formats required. There is a page, and I'll look for it and post it in Discord later, which
there are pages.
gives pages, yeah, because it's every single camera. It's
Yeah,
every
it's-
single camera. They're like, okay, it's an Arri Alexa. This is, you have to shoot raw. It has to be in like this K. It has to be in this data rate and this codec. And for every single camera, they are very, very specific. Further to that, besides those are their general guidelines, and a lot of studios might.
They're not guidelines. These are not guidelines.
Guidelines if you want to do the job, let's say. But then for the specific job, you will have further guidelines. So people will sit down and you will have a workflow meeting discussing everything, what the paper trail is going to be, how that would work, how the dailies workflow is going to be, what format the dailies are going to be viewed in, how we're going to view them. There's a great system called Pix System, which was recently bought out by Codex actually, which is an online dailies viewing system. You log in and you get all your rushes from the day before. They've got an Apple TV app, which is amazing. So I can, sit in my Apple TV and watch everything. It's a really, really great service. It's called Pix System, and it was recently bought by Codex, which was a little bit of a surprise. It's a good system.
Bill and then Mickey.
So on the conference about notes and paper and pencil and things like that, I had been trying for decades to move all electronics so I didn't have it, but I have been carrying this little moleskin notepad for probably 15 or 20 years, and I was going to retire it. Then I realized, I went back through it and I realized that I have things like notes about people in here. And then I realized, wait a second, my notes do get reflected to my computer and my iPad and everything else. They're in the cloud. And this is essentially the air gap for my brain.
There you go. Mickey, were you going to say something? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, like earlier when Chris was talking about metadata, there are tools like say Ambience ACN or Timecode Buddies. I forgot what they call their set networking protocol, but
Locket Network, no?
I doesn't ring a bell, but maybe. But yeah, there are tools like that help share metadata across different cameras, sound recorders, and apps on set. And like say an app like Movie Slate can share the metadata, so you can have a second AC or maybe even the first AD enter like, okay, now we're shooting scene 73 shot B, take 4, and that metadata can be shared around all the different cameras and all the different gear and all the different personnel on set.
Yeah,
Stephen
I'll say.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Steven,
I was going to say with them.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, small delay in my ear. So
yep.
I was going to say with metadata, coming back to Courtney's question earlier, what the great thing about the digital cameras now is we've got log files. We have log files for everything. Besides the metadata that you were talking about, we can also see stuff like when the camera was booted, when cards were erased, when cards were formatted. Because I have had that before where...
we talked about that. Yeah, where someone said, no, I didn't. And you're like, good.
Yeah, it's a good insurance policy. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Mickey, are you saying that software you're just talking about is a collective database for all of the different sources?
Well, there are different protocol standards that a lot of different apps and equipment use. So
I'm just thinking if there's a central database for the Zoom recorder, for the Camera One, for the GoPro, for the time code, if there's a central database from an editor's point of view, that would
maybe not GoPros, but more on the cinema end of cameras. Those are typically the ones that support these protocols.
Because it's always the producer that says, I know we did that shot. It's from that camera. And it's like, I don't know where it is. You're welcome to look in my data, in my,
right.
my rushes. But
yeah. Stephen Kimbrough asks, can Chris discuss planning for shadows, especially when not everyone can be on site for the same day? So you need to shoot at an exact time instead of an earlier time, etc.
Sure, it's a great question. Thanks, Stephen. Ultimately, the number one golden egg is to do a tech scout, to do a recce and go out and actually see that location. If you can't, you could use an app like Sunseeker because you can plot a custom GPS location. So if you knew you're going to be in a different place on a different day, you can enter all that data into Sunseeker and get an idea of where it's going to be. So you could say, okay, well, if you know that tree is 60 feet away and 30 feet high, you could kind of visualize it and see, okay, well, the sun will make it over that point. But you can enter custom data into Sunseeker and plot it ahead of time if you have all the data.
But again, like it's just like if you decide you want a certain building in the background, if you decide you want a certain scene in the background, it's going to be a huge deal to think about what the times are. There's a bunch of discussions that we have. I think I talked about this before. I have a habit of one of the things that I do is I get a lot of trouble for this. I probably shouldn't say this on the show, but I when I'm traveling to a place that has a lot of one of my hobbies when I'm flying to a location is I'll have a tour book and I calculate what time and location someone was standing to take a shot that I like. If I like it, like I go, oh, I really like that shot of Angkor Wat, or I really like that shot of whatever, and I calculate the time and time and location. And then I'm there at that time. Like I wander around the whole thing, but I'm at that location at that time because I thought that there was something. Now, usually my shot isn't the same as the shot that was there, but it tells me that there's something going on at that moment that I liked. Like for instance, if you're shooting Angkor Wat, if you're shooting the main temple at Angkor Wat, there is a 3x3 patch of a little piece of ground that is an outcropping into the water on the pond. It is the only place to shoot from that side of the temple in the morning. So in the morning when the sun comes up, there is a 3x3 square to shoot in, and there'll be 400 people there. But there were two of us that showed up at 4:45 that are fighting over that one space. So, and oftentimes if you can negotiate with it, you can figure out how both of our cameras can sit on a tripod right on that space. But it is, and you'll see that like the National Geographic guys show up like at 5:15 thinking that they got there early and our cameras are already set up. So the thing is that looking at those things tells you a lot if you can calculate it, and things like Sunseeker and SketchUp and Google Earth are great ways. If you see a shot that you want, it's a great way to figure out when was that shot and where was it shot, and you can look at the sun angles and everything else and kind of figure that out, and it's super useful before you get there. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to mention light metering apps. I didn't delve into them because there's so many, and you get accessories that you can stick onto your phone for light metering, like the Lumi Globe and stuff like that. I will say that light metering apps as a spot meter on the iPhone, for example, are actually quite accurate. That they're not that bad for a spot meter because it has a really good camera. So its internal light meter is actually not that bad. You can get accessories to put onto it. It reminds me of a really great story, which I'll just stop with this anecdote, of a cameraman going into a Coliseum to shoot a very famous movie which came out a long time ago. And had lots of big 18Ks in the Coliseum, and reaching his pocket, and he had forgotten his light meter, so he just pulled out his phone like that for about a minute and just turned and went 5.6, and they shot it, and that was it, and it worked.
That's great. By the way, I decided after listening to you, we just have to doing a reconnaissance has to be called a recce. A recce is there's good words in every culture for something, but doing a recce is so much better than all the other words I've heard of. So I think that we have to standardize as a group I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to go down there. Yeah, we'll do a recce. It's not a walkthrough. It's a recce.
With a W.
Alex, did you pick that one up in Australia? Because I've never heard it called anything else but doing a recce.
I've heard it I've heard it in South Africa and Australia is a recce, and I haven't heard it anywhere else. Like I don't know of it anywhere. Australia and South Africa are the only two places I hear it said that way, but it's perfect. It's a perfect word for it. Victor says, are you using apps for comms on set?
Excellent question. So the comms situation is fluid at the moment with our new situation at work. We're figuring it out. I've heard a lot more talk of HMEs and clear comms and boleros on set. For myself, I'm definitely looking at Unity comms because it's a really great solution. And for ad hoc, please don't crucify me, Discord. Just for really, really simple stuff, not for mission critical. I'm talking like, back of house, like I need to talk to the loader who's on the truck, or, stuff which is not necessarily time or mission critical, but something which is good in the background.
John Preto asks, Mr. Summers, can you look up this lens in that app? The Carl Zeiss planar 50mm 0.7. Is it there?
Is it in? I'm pretty sure it is in there. That is the Kubrick lens, if I believe correctly.
That is correct.
That's how.
And we have shot.
Excuse me, I've got to correct you on that. It's a Hasselblad lens that was modified by Zeiss.
But used by
true.
Kubrick.
That is true.
Yeah. So it's. Is it?
I will look for it.
Okay.
I'll look for it now.
Yeah.
We have shot with that lens.
Right.
We did a film in South Africa, and it's hair raising. I think we were the B camera team. We were the B camera team, and we were the 10th team to come in and attempt to get it right, and we stayed, luckily. So the shooting stop was T1, and it was on 35mm. So yeah,
oh my gosh.
Happy times.
Yeah. Daniel Ray asks, how do you share your app data with corresponding team members? Shared spreadsheets, Airtable, what do you use?
Really great question. So previously everything was email because we really need to kind of track something and have a record that's searchable. In recent years, I have seen a lot of people go to chat apps like WhatsApp and Facebook groups. I've pushed back against it myself for multiple reasons. Number one, because those platforms can be very prone to devolving into just sharing memes and talking stuff that's not to do with work. And the other trouble is that if I need to go and search for something like 3 months back, a specific spreadsheet, I can't really do that very effectively using those apps.
Right.
I have actually switched to Discord now for specific jobs. Because it's searchable, it's relatively clean. I can create, different channels, and it also has voice and chat in the background. Other than that, we have used Dropbox quite a lot with like a shared document. And other than that, we'll default to email at the end of the day.
Good. Courtney and then Sky.
I just wondered if you ever use Google Docs for any of those shared documents, since it's
absolutely
cross-platform
yes.
and everything.
Yeah.
How recently have you moved to Discord?
Recently, yeah. I have yet to complete a job successfully on it, so stand by for that information in a few months, I hope.
What I find interesting is now that I'm using Discord all the time, and I use Discord and I use Slack for some stuff that we have coming up, and I find Slack. I ran a company on Slack for years, and now I find Slack to be very square, like Discord. I'm so used to Discord now. I'm kind of like, oh, I got to open Slack. I think that's a danger for Slack, that it just isn't. It's not. I don't know. I find it to be frustrating now. Go ahead, Sky.
Can we have a second hour on Discord, because I too have just learned Slack, and now that you're telling me it's 18 weeks ago, I'd be very interested in learning the new tools, because Discord is just a different mindset of how to organize.
Well, and Slack was too. I mean, I had producers that started using Slack, and I was like, I don't know why we're I don't know why I need this. We have Google Docs and we have email and and then the juices started flowing into my arm, and then the next thing you know, I was like, within like 3 or 4 weeks, it was like, why are you sending me this over email? This is a Slack conversation. Like if it was short and it was something that was momentary, I was like, I don't want you to send me an email about that. And our email dropped in the company probably by 95%, and everything went into Slack. And so it was, and it's just an enormous amount of information being shared, as a producer, we had everything all private. So those are all like private discussions. So each team has their own little, the mistake everyone makes is making them all public discussions, and it's a useless format. What we had was tons and tons of silos, but the producers sat in all of them, and the people who were accountable for those teams were in all of them and could see all the conversations going on, but the teams couldn't necessarily, the logistics team wasn't sharing information necessarily with teams that weren't related to them, and so the thing is that you ended up with it kept everything safe relatively, as far as what conversations you're having, but it allowed the producers to kind of see everything, and it allowed us to kind of just, there's tons of personal conversations that are happening that we don't see, but inside that list, we were able to kind of check in on how our show's going and jump in sometimes and error correct very quickly. Like, oh, no, don't do that. Go down this path. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, I just upvote and I'll workshop the Discord with you, Chris, if we can find the hour separations between Budapest and Seattle.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, that'd be great. Daniel Ray also asked, run and gun shooter question. This is more general, I think, than what we were talking about. That generally rents from camera houses. First camera prime lens, purchase suggestions and why, or just keep renting. We have all types of cameras, C300s, A7, S, S1H. So I guess it's what should you buy a prime or should you keep renting?
It's a real investment. Glass is an investment because it's going to last you generally much longer than your camera bodies if you buy the right glass. I would look at the factors you're going to be looking for is what mount it's going to have and what image circle it's going to have, meaning how big a sensor or smaller sensor could you put it on? Is that lens going to fit on a full frame or a medium format camera later down the road? From the money point of view, you have to remember that if you're purchasing lenses, you need to factor in maintenance of those lenses and you need to factor in insurance of those lenses. I have found that more often than not, the insurance is the big kicker that stops people from buying as opposed to renting.
Right. Go ahead, Mickey, and then Sky.
And exactly what Chris said, but talking about like what lens to buy, like I think each show deserves its own look, and each family of lenses delivers a different look. But just taking into account that he mentioned run and gun, maybe the family toolcat would be the CP2s, the Zeiss compact primes, just because they're more friendly towards run and gun situations.
And they cover full frame as well. They cover large format.
Yeah, Sky.
This is a tease for next week when you come back. The request is bokeh and sensor, and I know we've talked about it in the past, but bokeh is a mystical word that came about with the Red camera. It's like, what's a bokeh? I don't know, about $3.95 a pound. I don't know. So that's a whole longer conversation, but that's the tease for next week. We want Chris back.
Oh, cool. I think Chris is coming back. But yeah. So you're gonna say, Stuart, real quick.
Bokeh is actually a Japanese word. It's not from the Red cameras.
Yeah,
it's
old.
It's the art and feeling of a image.
Right. Bobby Spangler, this is the last question. We'll be converting from HDMI to SDI and back using the BMD mini converter. Let's see. Unsure of the converters to pass through the control data. I'll save you the time. Once you do any conversion to HDMI to SDI, you're going to lose your control. So all of those things, you're going to lose control. Any converters, you can't do that. You have to keep it as a straight HDMI to HDMI via fiber or whatever. It has to carry all the information, but if you convert it to SDI, you'll lose it. And Chris, what are we talking about next week? Do you remember? You sent me a long list. I'm putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot. It's fine.
It's fine. I was just going to front sell it. It's going to be more Chris. That's
more Chris.
More Chris. There'll be more Chris next week. Chris, thank you
might
so
need
much.
to change basically. Thank you
so much for
Thanks
your
so
time.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic.
Thanks,
Another hour full. We were a little worried in the middle, but you guys all pulled it up. Go ahead, Zach, real quick.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Just a quick sync check, if you don't mind.
Nope, you're out of sync.
Thank you, Chris, for another great hour. I'm out, huh?
Yep,
okay.
You're out.
In the last hour.
You got so close. There we go.
I'll join Victor.
So now everything's starting to make sense again. All right, hit it, Mickey.
Alex, we expect a full review on that $5 app.
Yep. The next tomorrow is Peter Himmelman. Make sure to come in and check that out. And then Friday and Saturday, education. And then Sunday, we'll be hanging out and chatting. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.